There comes a moment in life when we realize that the greatest battles are not fought in the world outside, but within the quiet corners of our own mind. Mental discipline is not about control in the harsh sense, it is about harmony. It is the art of guiding your thoughts gently instead of letting them drag you into chaos. True discipline is not a cage, it is freedom. It is the freedom that comes when your emotions obey your values, when your impulses bow to your intentions, and when your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy. The foundation of mental discipline begins with awareness. You cannot master what you do not notice. Most people live on autopilot, reacting, rushing, repeating, unaware of how their thoughts are shaping their emotions and how their emotions are shaping their choices. But once you begin to observe yourself, even for a few minutes a day, something begins to shift. You start to see that your thoughts are not commands, they're simply suggestions. You don't have to follow every fear that speaks in your mind. You don't have to act on every emotion that rises suddenly. Awareness gives you a pause, and that pause is where strength is born. Discipline is not about suppressing what you feel. It is about responding wisely to what you feel. When you learn to pause, to breathe, and to choose, you begin to control not the world, but yourself. And that, quietly, is the first step toward true power. Now that we understand the foundation of discipline, the next truth becomes clearer. Power begins where focus is found. The mind is like water. When it is still, it reflects everything clearly. But when it is disturbed, even the brightest truth becomes blurred. Focus is the discipline that brings stillness to the mind. It is not about thinking harder, it is about thinking cleaner. A focused mind is not overworked, it is organized. It knows where to rest its energy and when to release it. Without focus, energy is scattered across hundreds of thoughts. With focus, that same energy becomes strength. Mental discipline begins to bloom the moment you stop chasing every distraction. In today's world, distraction is not just around us, it lives inside us. The endless noise, the digital screens, the comparison, the constant hunger for stimulation, all of it fragments attention. And when your attention is fragmented, peace becomes impossible. Focus is the medicine for that noise. When you train your mind to stay with one thing, one goal, one action, one breath, you begin to experience clarity. The world slows down. Decisions become simpler. Effort becomes smoother. A focused mind is not the absence of thought. It is the alignment of thought. It is when your intentions, actions, and emotions flow in the same direction. Imagine holding sunlight through a magnifying glass. When it is scattered, it only warms the surface. But when focused, it burns through obstacles. That is what mental discipline does. It turns scattered energy into concentrated power. And that power is quiet, steady, and lasting. When you focus deeply, you do not need to do more, you simply need to be present, because presence itself is the highest form of focus. Now that the mind has learned stillness, the next step unfolds naturally. Discipline must extend to the heart through emotional control. There are storms that come from the outside, and then there are storms that rise from within. Emotional control is not about avoiding the storm, it is about learning to stay centered while it passes. Most people believe that control means suppression, that they must silence their emotions or bury them deep. But true mental discipline does not reject emotion, it understands it. It listens to it. It learns from it. Because emotion is not the enemy. It is a messenger. The undisciplined mind reacts. The disciplined mind responds. The difference between the two is space. The space between what happens to you and how you choose to act. When you lengthen that space with awareness, you begin to rise above impulsive living. You stop saying words you later regret. You stop making choices driven by temporary feelings. You stop letting anger or fear speak louder than your wisdom. Instead, you begin to guide your emotions like a calm captain steering through waves, not fighting the sea, but understanding its rhythm. Emotional control is not coldness. It is emotional intelligence in its purest form. It is when you can feel deeply but still remain steady, when you can hurt but still choose kindness, when you can be afraid but still move forward. It is strength wrapped in softness, power expressed through patience. When you master your emotions, life stops pushing you. You begin to lead yourself. You begin to live intentionally instead of emotionally. And that is when your mind becomes a peaceful home, not a battlefield. Now that the heart and mind are beginning to work together, the next layer of discipline reveals itself, the discipline of thought. Every action begins as a thought. Every victory, every mistake, every habit, all of them are born in the invisible workshop of the mind. Mental discipline, therefore, is not truly about controlling actions, it is about mastering the thoughts that shape those actions. Thoughts are like seeds. The careless mind plants weeds, the disciplined mind plants trees of clarity, peace, and purpose. The average person lets their thoughts wander without direction. They replay the past, they worry about the future, they imagine failure long before it happens. But a disciplined thinker understands that thoughts are not harmless, they are architects of reality. What you repeatedly think becomes what you eventually believe, and what you believe becomes the shape of your life. The practice of disciplined thought begins with awareness, noticing what your mind is doing when you're not watching. Are your thoughts helping you or harming you? Are they building you or breaking you? Once you begin to observe, you gain choice. You can replace judgment with gratitude, fear with focus, complaint with effort. Slowly, your inner language becomes cleaner. You begin to
To
speak to
discipline
yourself
your
like someone you
thoughts does not
respect.
mean to silence them. It means to direct them. You guide them like rivers, allowing them to flow with purpose instead of flooding your peace. And as your thoughts become clearer, your actions follow effortlessly. Because a disciplined thought is like a compass. It keeps your mind pointed toward truth, no matter how strong the emotional winds become. When your thoughts align with your values, and your values align with your actions, you become unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because your inner world gets stronger. Now that our thoughts have found direction, the next lesson emerges: how consistency turns discipline into transformation. There is a difference between doing something once and living it every day. Real power is not found in single moments of inspiration. It is found in the repetition of effort when no one is watching. Consistency is the proof of mental discipline. It is the point where motivation ends and commitment begins. It is what separates those who try from those who transform. Self-control is the bridge that carries you toward consistency. It is the ability to act according to your higher purpose, even when your lower desires try to pull you away. Every day your mind will whisper excuses. Not today. I'm tired. I'll start again tomorrow. But discipline answers softly. Do it anyway. It does not shout. It simply guides. Consistency is built on small promises kept. When you say you will do something and you actually do it even in silence, your self-respect grows. Your identity begins to change. You start to trust yourself again. This quiet trust becomes the foundation of discipline, because you no longer rely on mood, you rely on principle. True consistency is not about perfection. You will stumble, you will rest, you will fall short at times. But discipline does not demand flawlessness, it demands return. To return again and again to your purpose, to your plan, to your practice. That is the real definition of strength. The mind that learns consistency also learns peace, because when you no longer negotiate with your excuses, you stop wasting energy on indecision. You simply act. You simply continue. And with every step of consistent effort, your life begins to take shape. Not by accident, but by design. Now that we have understood the rhythm of consistency, the next truth emerges. Silence is not weakness, it is the voice of true mental strength. The strongest people are not those who speak the loudest, but those who remain calm when the noise around them grows unbearable. True mental strength is quiet. It does not need to prove itself. It does not react to every challenge, nor does it seek constant validation. It moves with stillness, not with show, because the disciplined mind has learned something profound. Peace is stronger than chaos. The undisciplined mind rushes to defend, argue, and win. The disciplined mind listens, observes, and understands. It does not waste energy on battles that do not matter. It saves its strength for the things that truly count. This silence is not weakness, it is awareness. It is the understanding that reacting to everything is the fastest way to lose yourself.
When your inner world becomes quiet, life begins to unfold more clearly. You stop needing to control everything outside of you because you have learned to control what's within. You no longer run from discomfort. You sit with it, breathe through it, and let it pass. In that stillness, wisdom begins to whisper. You start to hear your own truth again, not the noise of opinions or fears, but the sound of your own calm certainty. Mental discipline is not the absence of emotion or reaction. It is the mastery of timing, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to wait, when to let go and when to hold on. Silence is not emptiness. It is space, the kind of space that allows strength to grow quietly beneath the surface. When your silence holds more power than your words, that is when you have truly mastered your mind. Now that we've walked through silence, the final realization of this journey unfolds. Discipline is not about control, it is about freedom. There is a quiet paradox at the heart of mental discipline. The more you master yourself, the freer you become. At first, discipline feels like limitation. It feels like you are giving up comfort, pleasure, and spontaneity. But as you walk this path, you begin to see the truth. Discipline is not the absence of freedom. It is the creation of it. Without discipline, you are ruled by your impulses, your habits, your moods. With discipline, you are guided by your values, your clarity, your peace. Freedom without discipline is chaos. It is noise disguised as choice. But freedom built upon discipline is serenity, the ability to move through life without being pulled apart by temptation or distraction. The disciplined person does not live a smaller life, they live a deeper one. They are no longer a prisoner of emotion or circumstances. They choose how to respond, when to act, what to believe, and what to let go. That is true freedom, not the ability to do whatever you want, but the wisdom to choose what truly matters. When you develop mental discipline, you begin to experience a kind of peace that feels weightless. You no longer chase validation or fear mistakes. You live in alignment, calm, focused, and free. The storms still come, but they no longer carry you away. You bend, but you do not break. You move, but you do not lose direction. Because the mind you have trained becomes your anchor. In the end, mental discipline is not about control. It is about liberation. It frees you from the chaos of thought, the turbulence of emotion, and the distractions of the world. It brings you home, to a place inside where peace and strength coexist. And when you reach that place, you understand, discipline was never the destination. It was the doorway to freedom, clarity, and the quiet joy of mastering yourself. Thank you for listening to this deep journey into the power of mental discipline. If these words touched your heart, support our work by liking, commenting, and subscribing to English Amplify, where learning becomes transformation.